1 in 4. 25% of the time, AI is hallucinating, just making stuff up. At least that's the conclusion of this new study. And look, I know that stat needs unpacking. I'm not saying that your AI is wrong 25% of the time about everything. It's more specific than that. And honestly, once you get into the specifics of what it's actually measuring, it gets scarier, not less scary. A study just dropped, the largest hallucination study ever done on language models, 35 models, 172 billion words worth of evaluation. That's not a typo. And I've been sitting on these numbers trying to figure out how alarmed we should actually be. So here's the way I'd describe what they're testing. Imagine you hired somebody to answer customer questions. Customer support role. You give them a binder, everything they need to know is in that binder. Their whole job is to answer questions from that binder. They're good at it, like genuinely good. 90% of the time they find exactly the right answer. But when somebody asks about something that's not in the binder, let's say, what's the best flavor of Doritos? They don't say, I don't know. They just make something up. Spicy nacho cheese, confidently, with eye contact. Every fourth question. You might have to fire that person immediately. That's what this study measured. So I do want to give a bit of quick context on what they were actually testing, because this matters. The scenario is called document Q&A. You got a pile of documents, contracts, support tickets, research reports, whatever, and you hand them to the AI and say, answer questions, but only from what's in these documents. This is the backbone of basically every serious AI deployment right now. AI assistants, legal review tools, customer support bots. Anytime a company hands an AI a pile of documents and says, answer questions from this, that's the scenario they're testing. I've personally set this up for a ton of companies, 10-person direct-to-consumer startups, all the way up to international retail fashion brands. And the researchers wanted to know what happens when you ask the AI about something that's just not found in the documents. You ask them about a made-up person, a fake company, a not real lawsuit. You ask them about a number that isn't there. Does it say, I don't see that, let me transfer you, hold on a second, I don't seem to know? Or does it just answer? They call this style of questioning hallucination probe questions, and I wish they'd called them something scarier because the results deserve a scarier name. But anyways, this is what they found. The best model in the entire study, called GLM 4.5, which most people in the West have never heard of, fabricated answers 1.19% of the time. That sounds fine until you start to do the math, especially at an enterprise scale. If your AI handles 1,000 queries a day, and that's 10 fabricated answers every single day, delivered confidently, sounding completely plausible. But that's just the best model. For the top tier, the models people are actually building with, 5 to 7%. The median model across the entire study, 1 in 4. 1 in 4 questions about things that have nothing to do with what the model has at its ready. Just get an answer that's completely made up. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable. The study tested 3 context links. Think of it as the short stack of documents, a medium stack of documents, and a big stack of documents. Short stack, the numbers above. Medium stack, so more context for the AI to answer, fabrication rates nearly triple for a lot of models. Long stack, the biggest bit of context, the most documents passed to the AI, no model stays below 10%. Not one. One model that looked completely fine at that short stack length went from 7% fabrication to almost 70% just by giving it more documents. 70%. That model's just out here vibing, making stuff up. And for the majority of trap questions, it doesn't have any idea what it's doing. Okay, so those numbers alone are worth a video, but there are 3 findings in the study that genuinely broke my mental model. Number 1, bigger models are not better at this. There's a model called Llama 3.1 405B, or 405 billion. It has 405 billion parameters. Think of parameters as the number of connectors in the model's brain. One of the largest open models ever built. It fabricates about 26%. Meanwhile, there's a model that only has 3 billion of those connections, active at any time. It fabricates at 7%, a fraction of the horsepower, less than a quarter of the lies. The researchers' conclusion, fabrication resistance isn't something that emerges when a model gets big enough. It's baked in at training time. It's a deliberate choice. Some model families have it. Some have a lot of it. Some don't have as much. If the size of the model isn't guaranteed to improve fabrication rate, then size shouldn't be your primary factor. Speed, accuracy, and the model's tendency to not lie should be. Number 2, and this was very shocking, setting temperature to 0 might be making things worse. If you've ever touched an AI API, you've heard this, temperature 0, the safe setting. And if you haven't, temperature is basically a dial that controls how cautious or creative the AI is. 0 means maximum caution. Only ever pick the safest, most predictable next word. 1 is as wild as you want to be. Sounds good, right? The study says not so fast. The study found that a temperature 0 is also the setting most likely to send your AI into an infinite loop. Like it just starts repeating itself forever, never finishing the answer. The worst case in the study, one model at temperature 0 had a 48 times higher loop rate than the same model at temperature 1. 48 times. That's like a GPS trying to recalculate after it's decided to take a more creative route or to be the most concise route, and it just sits at the same intersection forever, over and over again, recalculating the route because it cannot move on. It cannot make a decision. The reason actually makes sense. At temperature 0, the model always picks the highest probability next word. If it gets into a repeating pattern, which happens more in long documents, it has no mechanism to break out. A little randomness is the escape hatch that it needs. Number 3, and this one is the most important. Being good at finding facts and being good at refusing to invent facts are completely different skills. And they're basically uncorrelated. There's a model called Llama 3.170 billion. It correctly finds information in documents about 90% of the time. And that is genuinely impressive. But it also fabricates answers on non-existent information 50% of the time. 90% at finding things, 50% fabrication rate, same. Once again, it's like hiring an amazing researcher. They find everything you ask them to find, but the second you ask about something they can't find, they just decide to make something up and refuse to say, I don't know. This should change the way that you evaluate model performance. I know it will for me. You can't just ask it questions you know it has the answer to. Ask it absurd questions for your use case and see what it does. Honestly, here's what sits with me after reading this study. We're in this moment where AI is getting deployed fast. Companies are moving fast. Developers are moving fast. AI is moving fast. And the benchmarks people use to justify those deployments, they may mostly be testing the wrong thing. They test, can the AI find the right answer? Which is a good test. But if you're not testing, what does the AI do when the right answer doesn't exist? Ironically, some people come to this conclusion naturally. I had someone ask me once, what would the bot say if we asked it, what is the pee content in our rice? Now, it's clear there was no document outlining how much urine is in the rice of this like fast casual restaurant. So what did the bot do? It said there was no piss in the rice. And we were satisfied with that answer. We were happy that it said there's no pee in the rice, but it definitely made that up. There is no ingredient list that lists 0% urine inside of the rice. I don't think AI is broken. I don't think this means we shouldn't use it. I do think we've been measuring the wrong thing and telling ourselves we've been measuring the right thing. And that gap between what we're testing and what we should be testing, that's where trust gets eroded. That's where a lawsuit happens. That's where headlines get written. So what do you actually do with this? Probably 3 things. One is model selection. Model selection is your most important decision. More than temperature, more than hardware, more than your prompt, the gap between the best and the worst models in this study was 70 percentage points. Pick your model family based on fabrication rate, not just benchmark score. 2, test at your actual deployment context length, not the short stack, the real one. A model that looks great at 32,000 tokens completely breaks and collapses at 128,000. The context window a model advertises is not the context window it can actually use. 3, you need to build in safeguards, not because AI is bad, but because the floor is non-zero and always will be. The question isn't whether your model will hallucinate, it's how often and whether you'll catch it and how you can protect against it. Look, I share stuff like this not to scare you off of AI. You know that's not my thing. I share it because the people who are going to win with this technology are the ones who understand it honestly, the good and the bad. And the hype train is just too loud right now. Right now, the bad is your AI can hallucinate a big percentage of the time, just completely make stuff up and lie to people. If you've deployed AI in any capacity, what are you seeing? What have you done? Does prompting help? Sometimes it does, for me at least, but not always. If you want me to do a follow-up and actually show you how to test your own setup for fabrication before you ship it, let me know. I'd love to do another video on that. Anyways, I'm Aaron. If you like AI content, how to use it, news, advice, what I'm doing with it, how it makes your life better, how it makes my life better, stories from the field, anything like that, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you all next time. Peace.